So again, I said before, sometimes people from the Pacific Northwest can be a little pompous, but I will say that's a bit excessive. They lost so many guys, lost their coach, lost their offensive coordinator, they lost the pro head coach. Again, Seattle sports has had a rough 7 days here. What is up, everybody? It is Jake with Master Football back at it again. Happy Monday. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to be up to date on all things college football, hit that red subscribe button. Please do it right now. Also hit the like button too, and follow me on Twitter/X. That fam is growing. And if you like EA college football content, the MF Film Room in the description. It's my own channel. I haven't made very many videos for it so far, but coming up, there's going to be a lot more content. We didn't get our national championship release. Either way, we're talking about college football content right now. Let's go. Speaking of the Pacific Northwest, I want to make sure that I can tell you about a couple of my friends that are from there. And if you've ever known anybody from the Pacific Northwest, it is, how do I say this? It's kind of a know-it-all region. Typically very educated, typically, higher, standard of living than other parts of the country. Non-regional diction is amazing. You can typically understand everybody very clearly. However, with that, there is a lot of pompousness is what I'm going to say here. And again, either way, left-leaning, right-leaning. I have right-leaning friends from Seattle. I have left-leaning friends from Seattle. The same way they talk to everybody, very, very pompous for them. And I took a little bit of schadenfreude from them because the last week for Seattle sports was, how do I say this, not very good, especially from the football world. The first one here was actually a win with a 2-point conversion at the end of the game, the Seattle Seahawks versus the Arizona Cardinals. However, Jordan Love, the good old victory he had over the Chicago Bears, the fact that he won today I'm filming this the day before, over the Dallas Cowboys. So again, a sight of things to come. Unfortunately, the Seattle Seahawks do not make the playoffs. Even with a win at the very end, they finished 9-8. They are out of the playoffs. That was the Sunday. And then this last Monday was the Huskies playing against the Michigan Wolverines. Huskies 14-0, beating Texas, beating Oregon twice, going through the gauntlet of the Pac-12 schedule. Again, 2023 Pac-12 was pretty tough, but they get up against the Michigan Wolverines. Penix was uncomfortable, 27 of 51 for 255, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. You see the fact they gave up 300 rushing yards on the ground. It's just a different level. Outrushed 303 to 46. You could definitely tell on the outsides there might have been, it was a little more evenly matched, but in the middle of the defense and offense for both sides of the ball, you can see that the Michigan Wolverines were just built better. They ultimately win that game by 21 points, ending the dream season for the Washington Huskies 34 to 13. And then just a couple days later, Pete Carroll is out as the Seahawks coach. And again, he'll remain on in his advisory role. Hopefully he's not in charge of, first round picks, because usually he picks, he's been all over the place for first round picks. This last year was pretty good with Ebuka and with Devin Witherspoon. But you see the fact that he is going to be out. So again, the Seahawks are out of the playoffs. The Huskies lose the national championship. Pete Carroll leaves. And then ultimately we see the fact that Kalen DeBoer left too. And again, just this last Saturday, the Tide formally introduced Kalen DeBoer, who can't wait for the journey ahead. He takes over for Nick Saban, who is, again, that is one of the jobs. This is one of the toughest jobs out there. Kalen DeBoer, who came over, experienced in Indiana. That's how he got Michael Penix to come over to him. Roma Dunze did well in the transfer portal. He did a lot of things there, put this team in a really good spot. Only lost 3 games in the last 2 seasons, 1 game this year in the national championship. Unfortunately for University of Washington, that when that happened, there was going to be a ton of changes for this team. And the man who they thought was going to take over, offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb, a lot of people are like, well, hey, come on, this team's going to be in the Big Ten. Why would he leave? He could go take over the team. He ultimately decided to pass on the head coaching job as well, and he is expected to join the Tide. So when you look at that for them, we look at, the Seahawks are out of the playoffs, the Huskies don't win the national championship, the Seahawks lose their head coach, the Huskies lose their head coach, the Huskies lose their offensive coordinator, and that's not just it. This was just updated this last Saturday. The Huskies have lost a third of their football team in a month. Nearly 40 players have graduated, entered the transfer portal, decommitted, or retired since mid-December. And again, you think about the fact that all this stuff right here. It went from the highest of highs. You're playing for the national championship. You are 4 quarters away from winning the CFP. And then just after that, you lose the coach, you lose the offensive coordinator, you lose a zillion guys to the transfer portal. Guys are going pro. It's just all over the place. For them right now, of the guys who played in the national championship game, these are the guys that are still currently, and again, this could change, on the roster. We have the number 1 center and second team All Pac-12 selection Parker Brailsford, offensive guards Nate Kalepo and Julius Bulow, linebacker Alfonso Tupatala, and cornerback Elijah Jackson. That's it. So you're checking out the quarterback situation here. It says senior quarterback Michael Penix Jr. eligibility complete. Junior backup Dylan Morris heads the JMU. One-time San Diego State transfer and sophomore Will Haskell back in the transfer portal. Mississippi State transfer, graduate senior, and designated Penix successor Will Rogers returns to the portal. Also, going to replace an entire receiving core, the number 1 tailback, starting tight end, both opening game tackles, Troy Fautanu and Roger Rosengarten, pulling over 28 consecutive starts over the past 2 seasons. That is incredible for that offense. Just the interior offensive line remains intact. I mean, think about these guys who left here. Roma Dunze, Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk, cornerback Jamar Muhammad, a transfer from Oklahoma State, Michelle Powell, Asa Turner, Dylan Johnson, Braylon Trice, Troy Fautanu, Roger Rosengarten, Fatui Tuitele, cornerback Javion Green, quarterbacks Morrison Haskell, walk-ons Griffin Weiss, and Austin Harnow. I think that's how you say it, a tight end and a linebacker. So again, with that, there's just a ton of upheaval within this team. So again, I said before, sometimes people from the Pacific Northwest can be a little pompous, but I will say that's a bit excessive. They lost so many guys, lost their coach, lost their offensive coordinator, they lost the pro head coach. Again, Seattle sports has had a rough 7 days here. That being said, there's a silver lining I want to discuss here, and it's a guy I've been talking about for quite a long time. So the mysterious man from the NFL who took the job at Arizona, and you're like, who the heck is this guy? He's coming from pro to college. Is he going to be successful? And he was. His name is Jedd Fisch. It says Washington Athletic Director Troy Dannon engaged Fisch in a second interview this weekend and narrowed in on former Arizona coach for the choice. Sources said he was the only candidate to emerge for a second interview after the initial round of candidate calls in the wake of Kalen DeBoer's exit for Alabama. It said that Fisch emerged from a group of candidates for multiple reasons. Sources say he brings experience building programs in the Big Ten, as he served as Michigan's offensive coordinator in 2015 and 2016. He also worked as a quarterbacks coach for the Seattle Seahawks in 2010 under Pete Carroll, the NFL's longtime coach who exited the position this week. Brennan Carroll, Pete's son, is the offensive coordinator and offensive line coach in Arizona. And again, he's had experience as OC for the Vikings and the Jaguars, QB coach for the Patriots, college offensive coordinator for Michigan and Miami and UCLA. So he's kind of been all over the place, getting a lot of experience, taking over for one of his first jobs at Arizona in 3 years. A lot of success for them in those 3 years. Checking out the history of Arizona football in college, it's a mixed bag. Sometimes they're ranked, sometimes they're not, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. It's a weird spot here. Mike Stoops for a little bit, Rich Rodriguez for a little bit, took them to a Fiesta Bowl, lost to my Boise State Broncos. Kevin Sumlin for that weird 0-5 year, and then they take over Jedd Fisch. Jedd Fisch goes 1-11 his first year, taking over for an 0-5 team, goes 1-11, then 5-7, then 10-3, and that big bowl game win, the CFP final of the number 14 team in the country. Ultimately, he heads over to the Washington Huskies. But I'm telling you, this guy, I've been on him for a while. Check this clip out.
This team right here, this recruiting class was the number 22 in the country. And I know you're thinking, what, number 22 class in the country? Who cares? Well, you got to care when you're 1-11 the year before. That was these players were signing with a team that was currently going 1-11. They signed in December. They signed in July, whatever the situation was, to a team that know, hey, last year, this team was trash. I'm going to turn around. And they did mostly, especially on one side of the ball.
So Jedd Fisch is known for this. He took over the Arizona team, went 0-5 his first year before he was even there, gets there, goes 1-11, and then he gets the number 22 composite school recruiting ranking in the country. Again, he knows what he's doing. As a matter of fact, he's leaving a really good situation, which shows you how much of an attraction this UW job has. Check this stat out. Right here from CFP Fight Club. It says Arizona 10-3, finished number 11 in the final poll. The website said number 14, but we'll stick with that. Alamo Bowl over Oklahoma. Freshman Player of the Year in Fafita. They were set to return entering Big 12 play 18 of 22 starters. All that momentum in the world gone in one day, absolutely gutting. So with that, we don't know who he's going to bring over from Arizona. We anticipate that's going to happen. The guys from UW are probably going to go over and follow DeBoer to Alabama in the same way that Fish is going to bring guys up from Arizona. How many of those 18 of 22 returning starters we will see in the coming weeks? And remember, though, he's got about a 30-day window here before he can, bring those players in terms of the transfer portal for those players. So we see what they're heading into. This is going to be an interesting year for these guys. We don't know what to expect. I don't anticipate they're going to go 14-1. I'm just saying I might be wrong. We see what they start off with. So they play home against Weber State. Then they play against Eastern Michigan at home. And then they play their rival in the Pac-2, the Washington State Cougars. And then their first game against the Northwestern Wildcats at Husky Stadium, September 21st. And then they have a cross-country visit to Rutgers. Again, we'll see what happens with Rutgers. And then they host Michigan that next week, which is going to be a real interesting one. Then they play at the ultimate Big Ten test at Iowa. We don't know what to expect. They're going to be good in the secondary, so we'll see what happens there. At Indiana, home against USC. At Penn State, home against UCLA. And then they finish the season at Oregon this next year. Jedd Fisch has got his work under his belt. He's got a lot of resources with him. We'll see how many starters he can bring over from Arizona. But man, UW, a state of transition. Hopefully a silver lining with a guy I really like in Jedd Fisch. Unfortunately for the Washington Huskies, lose the national championship. They lose their head coach. They lose the guy you thought they were going to take over as the head coach in Ryan Grubb. Even the Seahawks lost the playoffs. The Seahawks lost their head coach in Seattle. Silver lining. Go down and find your boy Jedd Fisch from Arizona. He leaves a team that would be entering the Big 12 for a team that's entering the Big 10 in the Washington Huskies. We'll see how many guys he can bring over from Arizona. The guy knows how to build a program. Remember, they went 1-11, and after that, he was able to pull in the number 22 composite score for a recruiting class in the country. The guy knows what he's doing. However, he's got a lot he's got to replace after this national championship loss and the special things we had with Roman Dunze and Michael Penix. All right, guys, get in the comments right now. What do you guys think about UW for this upcoming season? I'm telling you right now, I love me some Jedd Fisch. He's got his work cut out because that Big Ten, we'll see what happens with the defenses. They have a visit to Iowa. They have a visit to Penn State. They also still have to play Oregon, who looks like they're pretty good this next year. What do you guys think is going to happen? Get in the comments and let me know. All right, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for being here. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Do all that stuff. I appreciate it. That's it for me, guys. I'll see you guys later. I am out.